mean, if I go somewhere, it happens, it happens.
Yeah, because you've had a traumatic experience.
Especially when you're a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I literally almost died when I was 8 years old. And it doesn't bother me. Things don't bother me as much. Like, oh, you could get attacked. I could get attacked tomorrow.
It's the same way with people that have had near-death experiences. You know, they've had NDAs, and there's been some great research being done by doctors on NDAs right now. But somebody who feared death before has that experience and knows what a comfort it was to be going through the tunnel or stepping through the door or seeing their ancestors, their loved ones, people that have gone on before them, to the point that they don't want to come back into their bodies. They want to be there. And then they can't wait for that day when they do pass, because they know what's on the other side and what a comfort that is to them.
And that's what's driven me to everything that I've done. Because I just do not reckless abandon, I would say. Calculated risk is a better way to put it. Because what's the worst that could happen if somebody tells you no? I could ask you, hey, and you could be like, no. And I would have accepted it and moved along. Because I've been told no. I've been told no by a couple people, famous people. But I don't take it to heart. I never take it to heart. If you don't want to, that's fine. I'm not going to force in it. And if you force it, you just look bad. So I just, kept it moving. But there are a lot of things that I want to do now that I'm of the mind, have learned all of this new amazing stuff that I didn't. You asked me, 15 years ago, you're going to be able to do, you're going to meet great people like you and other folks. I'd be like, oh, probably not. But I took that step. I took that one step.
Right. If somebody would have told me years ago, when I came up with this idea, I'm going to start a walking tour. I mean, I was a stay-at-home mom. I'd worked in nursing in Massillon, loved it. I've been with people when they passed. I helped people get better. I loved it, but I soaked up all that. I couldn't just clock out and go home.
Yeah, of course.
Because I worried about everybody. I'm a worrywart. Like, I'll worry about you guys when you leave. Did they make it home? Are they all right? It's just the person I am.
Made it home.
It's just the way I am. But, 21 years ago, it just popped into my brain. I'm going to start a walking tour. I'm going to blend haunted history with my paranormal investigations in this lovely little town that I live in. And I'm going to put up a little website and see if anybody comes. And I had 30 people. An hour and a half. Yeah. I'm like, these people, and they're like trapped. You have to listen to my stories because you paid to come here. And I'm going to keep talking until you get bored or you leave or you walk away.
I've learned so much from you about this area that I didn't know. We know about the tunnel. I've seen the tunnel over at Sister Century House. You helped me get in there. She literally took me downstairs and said, you want to see the tunnel?
Yeah.
I'll show you the tunnel. And you can't get into the tunnel because it's bricked up.
No.
But that was because of you. Like, what I have learned from here is because of you. And I always appreciate that. Like, I've told everybody who will listen, like, I'll promote you and Les and Wesley and everybody else, because without you guys, I wouldn't be here. Like, I wouldn't be interviewing you right now if it wasn't for you.
Well, it's your calling. You felt that you just felt that. You're compelled to do it.
And I love history. So it's like, I love both of those things. And I love presenting. I love talking to people. I love sitting here talking to you because it's like, you couldn't do this when I was a kid. You talk about stuff like this when you were a child, they would think you were nuts.
When I first started doing investigations, I was in my early 20s. Nothing was on TV about it. Paranormal was not.
I think alien autopsy was like the big thing.
Because they would do little sensationalized things.
Yes, like the Al Capone vault that we talked about downstairs.
But for me to come out to my friends and say, hey, I'm a paranormal investigator, they'd be like, yeah, whatever. So it was word of mouth. And I had so many people referring me from one to the other. Business owners. I have investigated, I don't know how many businesses in this town. In Massillon, I mean, I do investigations all over.
Right.
But in Massillon, it's like there's 2 streets that I've done 2 or 3 houses on without the other people knowing. And I'm like, what is going on this so-and-so street? Yeah. That every other house is having the same thing happen. Yeah. That gets me going because I'm like, it's repetitive. There is a routine here. Something is going along with these businesses along the canal.
Yes.
Lots of activity. And we talked about that earlier. 305 miles of activity with the Ohio Erie Canal from Cleveland down to Portsmouth on the Ohio River.
And you were telling us that if you died there, you were buried there.
Pretty much, yeah. If you were a canal worker, because you made 25 cents a day and you got a jigger full of whiskey. medicinal purposes.
Medicinal purposes.
You know, because there was no cure for dysentery or cholera or smallpox.
Malaria.
And and of course later on, after the canal was built, it was the influenza epidemic in 1917, 1918. But there was a lot of death along this canal. You cut your hand on a shovel, you could be dead within a week.
Yeah.
There were no antibiotics.
None.
So they would bury you pretty much along the banks of the canal. You didn't have enough money to get buried in a church cemetery. So your friends are just going to say a few words, and you know they've already got the shovels.
Yeah.
They're just going to put you in the ground. But I think the unmarked graves plays into that a lot. I think we want to be acknowledged in life and in death. And I talk about this on my walking tours.
Yes.
I think that's why there's some unrest, and I think that's why there's unrest at Gettysburg, at Antietam, at Fredericksburg, all of these Civil War battlefields, because they've not found everybody. They are still finding pieces and bits of skeletons. A few years ago, I read about somebody just outside of Gettysburg that was they were having a pool put in, and they started excavating, and they found a hand. So see, Gettysburg was just not on the national battlefield like everybody thinks, this little fenced-in area. It was the entire town.
Yeah.
The entire town.
And the emotions? Could you imagine, like, if you know, me and him would go to war, and he's on one side, I'm on the other. I got to kill him, or he's going to kill me.
Brother.
That's it. At the end of the day, our basic instinct that we were born with is survival.
Yeah.
And if I got to kill you to maintain my status quo,
Or to
I'm kill
protect
you.
my family,
Facts.
I'm going to do it.
Yes.
You know, one out of three men died in the Civil War.
And
can you even imagine that today? It'd be like,
oh my gosh.
You know.
And I had a conversation with a buddy about this, and I don't know if you ever felt this or you ever felt this, but like famous musicians that pass, they are stuck. Like there's a time when they pass and everybody mourns, and then there's that time after, and at some point everybody gets forgotten. And I was going through the cemetery where my family is buried, and I was seeing their names. And I'm trying to keep their spirit, so to say, alive. I'm like, well, I'm here now, and I will take on all of that, because I want us to be known, and then maybe my generations will do the same thing. And I thought to myself, there are so many people here who will never, ever see that.
Mm-hmm.
Will never, ever get remembered, ever, and that hurts my heart, because their family died, their whole line is gone. So when I go there, I try to find some of the older graves, pay my respects. But I want to do that for my family. I want them to be like, I want us to be memorialized for generations to come. Yeah. Unless there's an ELE event, which takes out half the planet. What are you going to do there? Nothing. You go home. Right.
But I grew up, we went to the cemetery when we were younger, and we cleaned graves. We took a blanket, and we took food, and we had a picnic.
Yes.
At the cemetery. I'm talking remote places where you would go. West Virginia, a cemetery with 6 generations buried of my mom's people. We would go clean graves, pull weeds, sit down. She would talk to us about, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. And in my brain, it's still there. And when I go there, hello.
Yeah, of course.
And I carry a little basket. I've got American flags in it, and I've got the first national flag of the Confederacy. And I know my Civil War soldiers that fought for the South, they get recognized, because that's the flag that they fought under.
Right. And
then my American, the vets and everybody get the little American flag.
Yes,
and I take plastic flowers with me, and I'll put them on family graves, and then just graves that look lonely.
And you could tell. You could tell graves. Here. Yeah, exactly. And I don't think enough people do that. I don't think because that's where we all are going to end up. At some point, we all die. It's inevitable, And I think that by paying those respects, having that respect. And I remember going to my grandfather's grave. I was leaving that day. This was not last month, but the month before, when I was down there. My grandfather's buried down there. And I remember leaving and just be careful. He basically told me, be careful. Like, if you're going home, be careful when you got a 4-hour drive. It takes 4 hours for me to get down to Sutton from here. And I just felt comforted, and it was just, it's so different knowing that all of these people, it took all of them to create me. Without one of them, I am not here. I don't exist.
There's a little piece of them.
Yes.
In you.
And I will always, and I have looked for ways to pull that, because I believe that you can pull from your ancestors, because they died, they had kids, they had families, they saw things, they worked crazy hours that most of us could not work this day and age, myself included, obviously. And that fascinates me, just that level of all these people came, and they all seem to go to Braxton County for some reason. I don't know what the reasoning was.
Farming,
but like you said,
it
was
came.
that. Yes,
they settled in the eastern part of the state, and they wondered what was over the mountains.
And they went over the mountains.
They came from the South Branch Valley and worked their way over to what is now central West Virginia.
Because most of my family, we came from, England, Scotland, Ireland, France, Wales, Germany, like all of that. Like and that's the most beautiful part is when I'll get a notification of like, we found so and so's wife, and I'll be like, oh my God, and then that unlocks the other part of the tree, and I'm on a constant hunt to unlock this path that I've found.
It's fascinating.
I love it.
I got very lucky because on my dad's side we hit a royalty line, and when you hit royalty, everything is so extremely documented and written about, and they tended to marry each other. They kept it in the family. First cousins and second cousins. So my father's side, I go back to 750 to the Orkney Isle outside Scotland, and to have that documentation with, the book is this thick, and it was a woman in the family, a distant cousin, whose father was a doctor, and they traveled around in the 40s and 50s and 60s, and she would go to like the Church of Latter-day Saints. She'd go to reference libraries, she'd talk to librarians, she would hire people when she got older to do genealogy, and she tracked down marriage certificates, death certificates, baptism records, went to when he would travel internationally, she would go to Ireland and Scotland, and she's the one that put that all together, and I kid you not, it's that deep of page after page, starting with my first great-grandfather, second great-grandfather, third great-grandfather, and it went on and on and on, and my 32nd great-grandfather was Strongbow, which was the great Norman invader who invaded Dublin.
Yes.
And when we hit that, it was like
pay dirt.
Unlocking the door.
Yeah.
Because then you're related to some people.
Yeah.
As kings and queens, and it was all done. All the research was done. Everything was documented. It's fascinating.
From what I've been looking, I don't know if this is concrete yet, but I might be related to one of William Wallace's daughters.
Oh, very good.
It's possible.
Very good.
I'm not going to put that up there like, I'm related. But that to me would be kind of epic.
Yeah, that would be epic. That would be very
epic. And it's crazy because I have
because I have Rob Roy. I have Rob Roy McGregor, the McGregors, which became Gregory. They took the Mac off and added a Y on it. And there's so many Gregorys in Braxton County, too, as well.
I'd be surprised if we don't have some distant relative at some.
Sure we do.
Because I'm related to so many people, it's insane.
Are you carpenters? Are you?
Yes.
Yeah. So am I. So that's what Wesley and I talked about last night. Is that we were cousins.
I told him, because it's like Rebecca Carpenter, like I'm an offshoot of that line, and he was telling me all this stuff. He showed me like the family tree part. He's like, you are descended from her. Yeah. And I was like, it's crazy because, like I said, my whole family was down there. Like my mother's side was there. My father's side was a little bit different. My father's side, when they came to Massachusetts, they came down into Pennsylvania. They migrated into Pennsylvania. Then they went out west to Missouri area to probably find their land, find what they were going to do, and then came back into Ohio. So my father's side's a little bit more scattered, so to speak, as from my mother's side. Most of my mother's side is that Braxton County area. You'll have a couple that'll be like a Little Birch or, places like that. And then, like, I would love to go on a tour and find all their gravestones because a lot of them are buried there, like, legitimately.
It's cool. My husband, being a mining engineer, he was also a surveyor for years, so he's got all of the old maps. All of the old maps with the logging roads on it and the coal mines on it, and then the little crosses for the cemeteries.
Yes.
Some of these maps go back to the 30s. And you can't just go into a store and buy a map like that. It takes up like the whole kitchen table.
Yeah, I've seen them.
So it'd be interesting to see if there might be some cemeteries that you've been looking for that you haven't found yet that would be.
Like I said, there's one that is on the road before Sugar Creek, and I would love to go see that because that's where, like I said, Lavina, who was like my great, I'm going to say she was my great grandmother's grandmother. I don't know. I have to pull it up, but I would love to because I've seen it before when I was a kid. I was probably 14, and even then I was kind of fascinated with it.
Yeah.
And then like I guess that's our family cemetery. Like
that's cool.
Starchers, Rollisons, Lemons. Like one of my ancestors was part of the Flatwoods Monster Incident.
Really?
Yes.
Yeah.
Eugene Lemon.
Oh gosh, because when you said that name, I'm like, oh, because I know it was on the Fisher farm.
Yes.
Because I was thinking, I thought you were going to be saying like Fishers, because I'm related to the Fishers in Webster County, which is the same as Braxton County.
Right.
Because some people be, oh no, we're not related to that. That's a different family. I'm like,
No,
no, it's not. If they all came off the same two brothers, just because they got in an argument, one went that way,
the other went the other way. You're still related, yeah.
Maybe they stuck an E on the end of their name or a Y on the end or whatever, and
off.
changed it to throw people off. But yeah, the Appalachia is fascinating, and it gets a bum rap.
100%.
You know,
it always has
stereotypical, but for me, as being into folklore and stuff and researching granny witches,
yes,
the people that had the sight, you know, and it's just so fascinating. The wise men, the wise women that lived out in the middle of nowhere, the healers.
Yes, you have to wonder if
because you had to do that.
If that wasn't, and I'm not going to throw the conspiracy word around, but if it was to downgrade them so that civilized, I put civilized because mankind is not civilized, but civilized society could move in. But the beautiful thing about Appalachia is modern society can't move in. You have parts like Charleston, of course. It's a big city. You're going to have that in every single place.
50,000 people.
Right.
Which is small to
small.
A lot. Yeah.
Go to Cleveland or go to, one of them cities, Columbus even. But they can't push out the beauty of a culture that still exists to this day. You can't push out the hollers. You can't push out the hollows. You can't get rid of that. That will always be there. And that's the most beautiful thing. And for a long time, I couldn't understand it. I was a kid. I would go down there. We would go down when Gasaway used to have the other bridge, right? They had two bridges.
Okay.
They destroyed one and built the other. The one they have there now is the new one. There used to be one before that, and it was, I believe, to the left.
Is it by the Dairy Queen? Where am I at?
Okay, so if you go down, so go past because Dairy Queen sits on like kind of the outskirts. Well, I wouldn't say outskirts, but like the end if you're going back into Sutton.
Okay.
So the other way, go down past where the Go Mart is.
Yes.
Where the Go Mart is underneath that little weird stone area.
Yeah.
Turn right. There used to be a bridge there, or it was in that area, and you would just take a little left and go down this hill. And my great grandmother lived about, I want to say 3-4 houses down. We would go visit her.
By the train tracks?
Yes.
Down by the train tracks.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, because I drive through there. My husband's a big train nut, so we're.
Yes. Yeah. Like my family.
Yeah. Huh.
I can trace. My mother was born there. I'm one generation removed from being a West Virginian citizen.
Yeah.
My mother was born there.
Me. I mean, I am now. Of course, I've been there for 13 years, but my family was the first. I was the first child born north of the Mason-Dixon line. In our family, because everybody stayed there. We all stayed there.
Yeah, I believe out of that, I would have been the first born here. My father, of course, he was born here. My father, my grandparents, they came here I want to say had to be 1800s they came to Ohio, because my grandfather was here, God rest his soul. He was here, oh man, he was born, I want to say in 29, and he was born here. So, we lived here before then, but like my mother's side didn't come, I think, until 60s. Because my grandfather came over here looking for work. My great-grandfather, who was a Rose, because I'm related to the Roses as well, he worked the railroads down there in West Virginia, because that's what they would work.
Yeah, there was only a few, you could work the mines, you could be out, you could be in timber.
Yes.
Or you were in coal, or you might have a family business or farm, and there's really not much to do, and even recently, where else can you graduate from high school and get a job and start off at $70,000 a year? It's coal mining.
Yeah.
Now, of course, that's been different.
Right.
President Obama kind of,
right.
with the coal, putting coal out of business, that was his goal. So that affected a lot of people, because they're like, this is all we've ever done. I'm third generation coal miner.
Yes.
What are we going to do? Where else am I going to go with just a college, with a high school degree, and make $70,000 a year and have insurance for my family.
It broke the state. Essentially, it did. Broke the state.
It did.
And that's what politicians do best. They try to break things and then fix them, but the fixing doesn't work. You can't heal communities.
Yeah.
Like that. There's communities that don't exist anymore.
Yeah. I know it firsthand. I mean, it affected us greatly with my husband, being a mining engineer. He and his brother, they operated a coal business. They had mines in 3 counties. They had a staff of 40 people.
Yes.
Where they supplied their insurance to everybody. Well, then when the insurance costs went sky high, they had to say, sorry guys, can't cover your insurance anymore. It's going to be up to you. And then they had to start cutting back because it's not profitable.
No, and
it's not profitable to mine coal if prices drop from $300 a ton to $30 a ton.
Yes.
Now you're not able to make money, and these people are going to be hungry, and you've got to learn a whole new trade.
But remember, the politicians don't care if your family goes hungry as long as their family doesn't go hungry. But that's a tale as old as time. We can go back to ancient times when kings ruled. We look at the Plantagenets. They were a wicked bunch of people, all intermarried, brother, sister, weird. But that's what happens. You read too close to the bloodline.
And then again, the victors write the history books.
And that will always be the case.
And that's the way it is.
But, I love Appalachia. I've been there so many times in the past few years.
Ghost stories.
Just life, period. Just the life. Like, I have a book written by a man named, I think, his last name is Dietz. Mountain Memories.
Okay.
I got it. I don't even wear it. I just find books. I have a knack for finding these old books. And it just talks about growing up in a certain time, a time that for us, you live in Ohio, we don't have any of that. That's Ohio. It's I tell people we hate you on the roads, but we'll be nice to you when we're not in our cars. Because that's just the type of people we are. We don't like you on the roads, get out of the way.
I love where I'm at now. Everything's at a slower pace. People talk to you at the store.
I love it. I get talked to. I was in Summersville, like I said, last weekend, and I was at, if you know where there used to be, there's a theater there. It's on the same strip that Walmart. It's like a long road. Walmart is in one spot. If you go down a little bit, it's a clothing store. And
yes, label shopper.
Yeah, label shopper. I bought that coat.
You found something?
That coat over there.
Okay.
I got from there. I love that coat.
Okay.
But it's just like everybody was so nice. It's like time stops. And I've been to Summersville Lake. Love Summersville Lake. It's a beautiful swim. I just love being there. I feel like that there is a longing in me to go back. Like
Well, your DNA.
Yes, probably, I want to go back. Like, I would live there. Like, I love it that much. And a lot of people are like, what about hospitals? And I'm like,
there's a hospital in Summersville.
I always just go, if I die, I die. Like,
Get me on a, there's a life flight, just get me up on medevac and get me to Cleveland Clinic if something bad happens.
I don't even worry about that. Just let me go.
Yeah.
Just let me go. I'm home. My ancestors will come and get me. They'll tell me where I need to go. So I'm not worried about it. Like, I've wanted to live there for a while. When I was a kid, I loved it there.
Yeah.
The only thing I didn't like was the heat. It's hot.
Yeah, get on the mountain though. We're up 2,200 feet, so you don't get. You still get some humid days, but you're up high enough. 100%. You got a breeze. You can always have a breeze.
And that's the thing. Like, I love being there. Like, I know where I'm going to end up. Like, I will end up there at some point in my life. I have a feeling.
Well, I hope you guys come and visit.
We want to come and
I
visit.
hope you come down and hang out.
It's on the list.
It's on the list.
Yeah, because I'm 10 minutes from the lake. I'm 25 minutes from Sutton. Right off of Route 19.
It's been on the list. As soon as we saw you build it, we're like, listen.
Yeah, it's been a project. 9 years now. And the end is in sight. I'd say we're probably 75-80% done. But there's four floors. So, that's how.
I'm just going to live there.
Oh my God. Yeah. I just wish I could just go like this and everything be done. But
when are you looking at the scheduled end date for everything?
We never put one. Perry was also a contractor.
So
Engineer,
it's done.
electric.
It's done when it's done.
Yeah. So we have 2 great guys that they're building, but a lot of it's been the Perry and Sherri show. I learned, drywall. He runs electric, plumbing. I painted probably 99% of that house, and when you think, what's a little bit of paint?
Oh, no.
There's 9,000 square feet in the house.
A bucket of paint doesn't go very far once you really
I hate painting. I hate it. I've done it.
I'm doing a lot in black. It's a log house. I stain the logs in black.
Nice.
Yeah, it like fades into the hillside, because it's like the trees it blends in really well.
I wonder if I was there. Okay, so if you go like you're going to the lake, there is an overlook. If you're going down to like there's an overlook, and there's a house that sits way down the river, or down whatever that is, river I think. I don't know what it is, but it looks like a log cabin that sits off into the distance, like a solid maybe mile, 2 miles. I wonder if that was your house we saw.
No, you couldn't see it.
Okay.
Well, if you're on 19, we live before you get into Summersville.
Oh, okay.
So we are 3 miles. We're the Muddledee.
Okay.
It sounds like something from Harry Potter.
It does.
The center of the earth. We're in the Muddledee forest.
That's very nice.
Inner earth, whatever. So we're 3 miles before that. But as you're traveling on 19, if you know where to look, you can see the house for just a split second. And then it's gone because we're on a hillside. But yeah, you have to come visit. We've got Bigfoot, we've got ghosts, we've got weird stuff going on in our house. We've had some contractors that have been a little nervous being there. They've heard footsteps coming up the staircase and they've yelled down like, "Hey, who's here?" Nobody answers. There's nobody there. And that's happened to us.
Do you think it's land, or do you think?
I think it's the land, and also the fact that we've had 9 deaths on the property. One was a deer hunter who had a heart attack, and the other 8 were coal mine related because we live on an old coal mining job. It was deep mines and also strip job.
Yeah.
All right, so there were mine explosions, mine cave-ins, and then there was one guy, Mr. Thomas, who actually is a real person, who was killed. He was trying to connect 2 cars on the train, and it slipped and pinned him, and he died. So Mr. Thomas, multiple people, I think there's been 4 or 5 people that have seen him so far.
Do you ever think
he pops in?
Do you ever think it's everything that you do? Do you ever think that some of that, I'm not saying like attachments, but I'm saying that energy sort of bonds with yours?
It was happening before I got there.
Oh, but
I've known my husband since we were like 11 and 12. That's how long I've known him. His mom and my mom were friends in West Virginia. So we grew up seeing each other. When we go down there to visit, age 11 and 12, we would, hang out. And we dated in our teens, we dated in our 20s. He got married to somebody else, I got married to somebody else. He gets divorced, I get divorced, and then we get married. So we've known each other a lot. But he has always told me, something's going on in this valley. They call it the Haunted Valley. There was actually a book that was written about that area called the Haunted Valley. And the Bigfoot sightings. That's been going on for years. People, and I'm a Bigfoot, oh yeah, right, till you hear one. And then it completely changes whatever. It's like, what was that? And my husband's like, oh yeah, I told you you can hear one. And he goes, pretty soon you'll probably hear one answer. I'm like, yeah, whatever. I'm on the front porch going, what was that? Because it happens so fast you can't grab anything to record.
No,
it's just like, ooh, like that.
Right.
And you're like, and he goes, one will probably answer. I'm like, you're full of crap. A couple minutes later, over on this hillside, same yell. And I'm like, where am I living? What is going on here? Because I used to laugh at the Bigfoot people. I did. Even though I worked the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, I'm like, yeah, whatever. I want to see one. I want to hear one. I want to smell one. I wanted something, just like with UFOs and aliens. It's like, I want to have that experience. Well, boy, I heard it. And my son saw one. I wrote about it in one of my books, and he and his buddy, they were gaming. I was doing a book signing in Akron, Ohio, and I got a very frantic phone call about 10 o'clock that night. You're not going to believe it. And he doesn't even like to talk about it. He doesn't want to mention it.
See, that's when you usually know that those are
he
real
was
cases.
so sincere about it and just scared to death. So
I saw a UFO back in 2020.
I saw one from the top floor of the house, and I always laughed about the UFO people.
And now, see, this is what you get for laughing at them.
It bounced through the air, popped up above the mountainside, and I'm just staring at it. And my husband's looking at me like, what are you looking at? Because we would get bees and wasps and stink bugs up there when we were
everybody gets stink bugs
construction.
Yes.
And I would sit there and I would follow it, and then I'd jump up with a fly swat and I'd kill it, right? So this thing pops up above the mountain. It's like 9 o'clock at night, still some ambient light, and starts his dance across the sky.
She gets her fly swatter.
And he's facing me, and I'm watching like this, and then it shot off to the south. And I'm like, oh my God. He goes, what? I said, you're not going to believe what I saw. He goes, did you see the lights? Because he tells me,
right.
You know, I see lights up there. I'll see stuff in the sky. He had his pilot's license for a while, so it's like everything I talk about. He's like, "Oh yeah, back when I was a pilot, you know." Or like this.
It's all nonchalant.
Yeah, back when my background in geology. You know, be like that. I'm like, okay, well, my background is surveying. You know, I was a surveyor, so I'm like, oh my God.
Well, it's not really anything serious.
It's like I live with. Yeah, he's like a Renaissance man. He does everything. So it's kind of, and he's an electrician too.
Get up here now. I'm scared. No, I'm kidding.
It's an old house, so I'm sure that's just a little power surge
that's
going
what I
on
think
right
too.
there. Yeah,
or maybe not.
When the furnace kicks on, you know, it's just.
You know what? This one time, I'm gonna go for the side of maybe it's something else.
Could be.
Could be.
This house has stories. This house has a lot to talk about. You know, Doc Dissinger tried to poison his wife in this very house. You know those fainting powders back in the old days?
Yes.
You know, and then snort it, and then you felt, oh, I feel much better. He put something in it.
They have those kind of powders today.
Yeah. Well, Caroline noticed that after she took some of her husband's powders, that she got extremely ill.
Oh.
To the point that couldn't get out of bed, and then had some other doctors check out these little powders that her husband had made for her. They weren't as pure as what they were supposed to be, and the ingredients in there were something that could make you very ill. So it's a good thing they got divorced. That's all I can say.
And that is where we'll end today's episode of This Uncanny Earth. I would like to thank our guest Sherri Brake for being on once again.
Thank
she
you,
is
guys.
amazing.
Thank you.
Where can people find you, and what do you got going on?
Well, you can find me tonight at the Pink House.
We found her.
But by the time this airs, you can find me on Facebook under Sherri Brake, Haunted Heartland Tours. I have a website, hauntedhistory.net. I have my own podcast, which I've been kind of lax about doing. It's Haunted History with Sherri Brake. I've got tours to Ireland and Scotland. We got a Haunted Vegas, Haunted Gettysburg, working on New Orleans, working on Iceland.